Good morning, everyone.
This is awesome. This is incredible. Awesome. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you, Fab, for setting this up. It's a great group of people, and there's going to be some incredible energy in this room. So this is my partner and best friend in the whole world, Josh.
Good morning.
So Josh Seiler, we've been together. It's an odd way to say that. We've been best friends doing crazy shit together for the last 15 years. We love extreme sports, rock climbing, skiing, the steepest, deepest stuff. We do everything together. So it just made sense that we'd be business partners. So we started a company called The Breath Source. It's the world's first marketplace breathwork app, where we went across the world and we found the leading breath instructors from all over the world and brought them together into one co-creative collective place and bring breath into one place. Breathwork is where yoga was 20 years ago. 20 years ago, you were kind of weird and new agey if you did yoga. Now you're weird if you don't. That space and time is wrapped up now with breathwork. People are starting to find the biohacking and the extreme spiritual benefits and the physical and mental benefits of breathwork. So the Breath Source was designed to be able to give you guys at the tap of a finger, and there are some people in here already using it every day. At the tap of a finger, you have all types of breathwork because there's so many. You have pranayama, you have shaman, you have DMT alkaline, you have somatic, you have buteyko, you have...
It goes on for a little while.
Yeah, there's a lot. And it all is based from pranayama. Pranayama was the original, and then everybody took it and spun it and made their own magic with it. So today we're going to experience a bunch of that. Josh and I would like to talk first about the utilitarian use of breath. It's extremely important to know how to breathe, and we're not taught how to breathe. We're taught, breathe deep, just take a deep breath. But how do we take a deep breath? Do we breathe through the nose? Do we breathe through the chest? Do we breathe through the belly? I had someone the other day say, I noticed that I stopped breathing quite often, and she felt, because of medical society, that was a bad thing. And it's actually a very, very healthy thing to catch yourself not breathing, because your body is rebalancing carbon dioxide, and you're probably over breathing as it is. So breath. Has anybody heard of Oxygen Advantage or Patrick McKeown? So he's kind of the god of this breath work, which is called buteyko, and got to give him a lot of props. He's on the app. Great Cause is on the app in representation of Oxygen Advantage. But the key with Oxygen Advantage and what Patrick has dedicated his life to is teaching people how to breathe through the nose. So can anybody tell me the first thing as to why it's so important to breathe through the nose?
Filtration.
Filtration, awesome. Nitric oxide is a huge one.
Parasympathetic breathing.
Okay, so we're just going to abbreviate that. So parasympathetic. Awesome. So when we breathe through our nose, our nostril holes are small because the nose was designed to breathe. It wasn't designed to eat. Surprise, surprise. Our mouth was designed to eat, and it was designed to communicate, so it's a big hole. So with that, we don't want to breathe through it. And it's very confusing because you guys will go out and you'll exercise and you'll think, well, I have to breathe through my mouth. Well, bullshit. Because I've spent the last 2 years learning to breathe through my nose, and Josh is actually my trainer, and we can go through an entire workout and I can breathe through my nose for the whole workout. I ride hard enduro, I ride downhill mountain bikes, all that stuff, and I breathe through my nose the entire time. When the air comes in the nostrils, your nose holes are small. It speeds the air up, it cleanses the air, it warms the air to a very specific temperature. It goes into the nasal cavity, it spins like a little turbo in there. When it spins, it takes the nitric oxide, thank you, Barton, out of the capillaries in the nasal cavities. And that nitric oxide gas is extremely important. As it starts to come down into the lungs, I'm going to draw the worst lungs on the planet. It's going to look like something else. We have this nose that we need to learn how to use a lot more often. And we come up into the little turbo, and it comes down into the nasal passageways, and it comes into the lungs. That nasal oxide is very important for several factors, but most of the time, our lower lungs are filled with blood. The nasal oxide is what brings the blood from the lower portion of the lungs to the upper portion of the lungs. And there's a space in here that's called empty space, dead space,
neutral lung.
Neutral lung. And so this space in here accumulates dead air over time. And nitric oxide is designed to pull the blood flow from the lower half of the lungs to the upper portion of the lungs, so that when you breathe in, you don't have to fill your entire lungs to get a good breath, because we're going to teach against that as well. When you breathe in through the nose, it speeds up, captures nasal oxide, nitric oxide, comes into the airway. That nitric oxide comes down into the lungs, pulls the blood up into the lungs so that you can use the upper portion of the lungs. Because what's in the upper portion of the lungs is called alveoli. The alveoli looks like little grape sacs all throughout the lungs. And all those little alveoli capture all of your red blood cells. Everybody knows that red blood cells carry oxygen. They're your only cells that don't have DNA in them. They're designed for transportation. And so your red blood cells are like little cruise ships, and each little red blood cell is designed to carry just over 1 billion passengers. And those 1 billion passengers are called oxygen molecules. As we talk about this, I want you to also keep in mind that oxygen is the original plant medicine. So as the oxygen comes in through the airway, it comes down into the alveoli, and it parks in the alveoli and it waits for this red blood cell. So this cruise ship called a red blood cell comes along. It docks in the alveoli, and it has 270 million little hooks called hemoglobin. And it reaches out, and each hemoglobin grabs 4 cosmic life force prana oxygen molecules, takes those little passengers in, parks them in the cell, marries them in the mitochondria, your forever young mitochondria, with glucose. And then that glucose has an explosion. I like to call it prime source energy. And as that explosion happens, the red blood cells creating a ton of energy. Call that ATP here in a minute. And then that red blood cell takes off. And this all happens in, does anybody know how quick this happens? All of you doctors? Just kidding. It happens in 3/4 of a second. It takes on over 1 billion oxygen molecules, marries it in the mitochondria, giant explosion happens, and it's ready to go take it into your tissues. So as soon as it leaves the alveoli, and what's cool about this is 3/4 of a second. Why is it 3/4 of a second? Because your heart rate is typically between 60 and 75 beats a minute. And every time your heart beats, it clears your lungs. When our heart rate increases, guess what decreases? Gas transfer. Gas transfer decreases because your little cruise ship spends less time at the dock, right? So it can't take on enough oxygen. And how we keep our heart rate down is by breathing through the nose. As we do this, that little red blood cell, now it's full, 3/4 of a second, it's got its little passengers, takes off, and it goes throughout Josh's jacked body here. and it's looking for what? The most important molecule in the body. Carbon dioxide. Everybody's all afraid of carbon dioxide, but our planet loves it, our plants love it, and our bodies have to have it. It is the number one, in my opinion, molecule on the whole planet that keeps life sustained. Because we can't live without plants, and we can't live as a tissue without carbon dioxide. So it's cruising through Josh, it finds a carbon dioxide molecule. Carbon dioxide is made through carbohydrates that are used up. Our tissues make carbohydrates. And so once it finds that carbon dioxide molecule, they talk, and they make an agreement that this oxygen molecule is going to give all the ATP to the tissue, which is energy, and then it's going to carry that used carbon dioxide molecule back to the lungs. And so when you guys are working your breath work today, and you get this urge to breathe, it's not because you're low on oxygen. Your oxygen levels are perfectly fine. What it is the carbon dioxide that's used up wants to leave the body. So it's called carbon dioxide or CO2 tolerance. So what breath work allows us to do is increase our CO2 tolerance. With an increased CO2 tolerance, guess what we're going to use more? We're going to use our nose more, because we're not going to feel like we need to. We do this because we're afraid of the feeling that we get when we feel like we're out of breath. And it's not real. I'm here to tell you it's not real, and it's just tricking you into breathing faster, more shallow, and when you breathe through the mouth, you're actually expelling too much CO2. You're getting too much CO2 out, and when there's an imbalance of carbon dioxide and oxygen in the body, you lose 2% of your brain's cognitive function with every milliliter of carbon dioxide that's blown off.
Is that why, like, when people used to panic, they would breathe in a bag?
It's exactly why. I watched a doctor on an airplane the other day taking a woman with a panic attack, giving her a face full of oxygen and checking her pulse and not understanding why she's not coming down. They're shoving shit in her face. They got her all strapped up and the whole plane's staring at her. She's going total berserk and they're giving her more oxygen. I guarantee you her blood oxygen level was 99.9%, but her tissues couldn't get the oxygen into them because they were low on what? CO2. And nobody knows this. And so yes, that's exactly why we breathe into a bag, is to get the carbon dioxide to stay in the body. So if you get into a place where you're in a panic attack, you don't have a bag, exhaling your breath out and holding your breath on an exhale and slowly breathing in, it's gonna hurt, but slowly breathing in and then pursing your lips and slowly breathing out, your panic attack will go away quickly, because a panic attack is only adrenaline. It's all it is. And we get scared of the feeling of adrenaline because we have nowhere for it to go. We're sitting down. And a panic attack is just an overwhelmed adrenaline running through the body. It's perfectly safe. But it's the number one emergency room visit in the world. Once the oxygen finds its way into Josh's tissues, the carbon dioxide is released, it finds its way back to the lungs. Now here's the cool part where we're gonna get a little esoteric. We just talked about plant medicine, oxygen being the first bit of plant medicine. When we take in this cosmic life force prana energy called oxygen, it's empty space. Your body is 99 to the 14th power of empty space. This was a download that I had, so this is not, I don't have any science to back this up, but your coded carbon dioxide tells the planet where you are at all times. You have an energetic frequency that does this as well, but here's what's cool. All these plants in this room right now are eating up the carbon dioxide that you're letting out. And so when Dr. Fab exhales, that plant over there, because its source knows that Dr. Fab is here, because his carbon dioxide is coded specifically to him. And this is another cool thing about what we do with the dimethyltryptamine and our body's chemicals through breath work. Your dimethyltryptamine, and those of you that know plant medicine, 5-MeO, DMT, and all that stuff, know that dimethyltryptamine separates the soul from the body. Somebody has a traumatic event, boom, they're up here and they're looking down at their body. All near-death experiences are exactly the same. They can't all be wrong. And every time a doctor analyzes a sudden death scenario, there's always a shitload of dimethyltryptamine in the body. And it's designed to separate the soul from the body. And so we use dimethyltryptamine in ayahuasca and 5-MeO and different things that are natural. But your DMT is specifically coded to you. So it takes very little of Dr. Fab's DMT to get him to go to another place. This is what breath work, in my opinion, is so beautifully designed for, is to allow us to tap into our own supply, as Wim Hof says, and be able to get high on our own supply and take ourselves to a different place. Breathing through the nose is vitally important. One of the best tools you can have is this right here. This is surgical tape.
Yeah, or sports tape, maybe.
Sports tape. So it's just basic sports tape. And my dad was on a CPAP in the last 10 years. I taught him to tape his mouth. He no longer has to sleep with a CPAP on. And so most of us snore at night, and most of us breathe through our mouth if we don't snore. And this is all it takes. So once the tape is on, don't put lotion on your face right here before you go to bed. And I know that could be a challenge. There's other devices that you can use as well. But this tape over the mouth will keep you from mouth breathing at night. You'll wake up so much more refreshed, so much more renewed, and the gas transfer in your body will be balanced when you get out of bed. My dad is like, I sleep so good, and my mom's like, he doesn't move all night long. It like changed everything. And then I'll use them because they're fun, but that mom said that dad used to roll over and they would cuddle and he'd be mouth breathing because the CPAP causes his mouth to drop open. It shoves this air in all night long. And she said it was just not sexy. And so now dad rolls over, takes the tape off, and he's nose breathing. And now he's nose breathing through the day because he's training his subconscious, and it's changing his nervous system. It's changing his biohacking in his biological effects of his body. Because first thing we do when we get to this planet is what? We breathe. The last thing we do when we leave the planet, we breathe. Breath is life. It's God. It's source. Sorry, I have a problem with just taking over the floor when I teach.
I like to do this cool little oxygen diagram. You mind if I take the floor for a minute?
Yeah.
Okay. So if we consider oxygen and where it comes from for a moment, it starts as literal cosmic energy. It's a beam of energy flowing through the universe that hits our planet, and our plants uptake that. And they use it, they kick it through their system to get the food they need, and their byproduct is oxygen. So kicking out O2 for us to breathe in, and then go through this whole process that Travis explained, and then we exhale CO2 back into the plants, and it's this circular dance all day long that we do with the plant and with the cosmos. And sub to that, the structure of CO2 is just protons, electrons, neutrons cruising around, and those themselves are made of energy. And so everything, as we know, is based in energy. But I really like to show this diagram and this whole flow just to get a sense of the spaciousness of where this molecule comes from that is the original plant medicine. Because when the tissues get the medicine they need to operate the way they need to, each cell gets the oxygen that it needs to fire up the mitochondria and do what it needs to do in that cell. Self-healing can happen, releases, traumas can heal. You can rewire your neural circuitry. And it's really cool, the biohacking that you can do with just this molecule that activates all kinds of different neurotransmitters and drugs within your own body that are there, not because prescription drugs have told our bodies how to make those receptors, but because our bodies already have those receptors in them because we produce those ourselves. And just learning a few techniques can activate a whole bunch of that stuff and put you on a path of exploration and healing that is life-changing. We've got our own journeys with how we got to this point with breathwork. We've been practicing and teaching breathwork for 5 to 7 years now. And the breath source is the culmination of all of that, and we're excited to bring it to the planet.
So here in a minute, we're going to stand up, we're going to move all the chairs, and we're going to move the tables real quick. Those of you that want to stay in a chair, please do. All I ask is that you have a straight spine. And why do we have a straight spine? So we're going to do this thing called a root lock. Who knows what a root lock is? A root lock, also called a mula bandha, is taking your intrinsic muscles, the muscles you use to stop pee in midstream. So if you would just squeeze those muscles for me real quick, just take yourself inside, focus on the intrinsic muscles, squeeze those muscles. And when we squeeze those muscles, we're pulling up the floor and we're pressing the coccyx bone up into the spinal cord. When we press the coccyx bone up into the spinal cord, it pushes the cerebral spinal fluid, which is the Christos, up into the skull, and it presses all the way up against the brainstem, pushes against the pineal gland, and your pineal gland is this tiny little rice-sized gland that has all these little rhombohedron crystals around it. And when those rhombohedron crystals move, they spark. So everybody knows the lighters, the little tick-tick-tick lighters. So those little tick-tick-tick lighters, and then all of a sudden the thing lights. The reason why the trigger is hard to pull is because there's a quartz crystal inside every one of those lighters, and there's a hammer that strikes that quartz crystal, and crystals have infinite energy. It's impossible to run a crystal out of energy. And they've found that out. So they've built these quartz crystals, they slam it with a hammer, it has a certain specific cut to it, and it sparks infinitely. And it creates, in our brains and in our pineal gland, it causes dimethyltryptamine to leak out of your pineal gland. And the largest amount of dimethyltryptamine in the size of this is how powerful it is, it's in the size of a grain of rice, is enough to separate your soul from your body. When we sit down for Aya, we take 2, 3, 4 doses this size, and this is in the size of a rice. That's the difference between coded to you and not coded to you. When we do this hold, however you're seated or standing, what you're going to do is we're going to go through a subset of breaths, and I'm going to say, okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, and you're going to do your last one, and we're going to exhale all the air out, And when we exhale all the air out, there's going to be no air in the lungs. I like to tone when I exhale out. So this would be me. 5, 4, 3, 2, last one. Big breath in, and then release. And as I release, I'm letting my head fall forward. I'm going into a throat lock. No air in the lungs. I stomach lock a lot of times. I'll bring my stomach back into a vacuum, and I just go into full relaxation. What's happening here is we've pushed all the oxygen out. We've super oxygenated the body. We've hyperventilated. And all the chemicals start to flow. Your endocrine system is activated. All these systems are activated. And you're sitting there with no air in the lungs. And it's allowing your carbon dioxide tolerance to rise at that point. You're going to feel euphoria. You're going to feel this sense of, wow, this feels so good. And then it's going to cross over into, okay, this is starting to become a little painful. Do you guys remember why it becomes a little painful? Carbon dioxide, not because you need oxygen. So when it starts to become a little painful, push past that fear, push past that pain, because we're reprogramming the body to a new mind, to a new place of being today, to a new state. And so as we're reprogramming, we're in that state, the nervous system's gonna say, breathe, 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 Courtney, you're dying. And it's just not true. Our nervous system runs our life. We have this thing called the prefrontal cortex that's worried about the future and it's worried about the past, and our nervous system reacts to that. We want to get in the parasympathetic side of the nervous system. Sympathetic is fight or flight. Parasympathetic is rest and rebuild. And by understanding that we're in control of our nervous system, we're taking our power back, going deep within, and you can make these holds start to last longer. So I've had students that have got up to 7 minutes with no air in the lungs. Medically, that's impossible. They reduce their heart rates to 20 beats a minute. All kinds of medical impossibilities through breath work.
So with that, when those surges hit of, oh crap, I need to breathe, it's your stress response, right? And every time you hold and say, no, not yet, I'm safe, I'm good, I have what I need, you take back a piece of your nervous system. You take back a piece of learning how to control your stress response, which is then applicable out in the real world. When people cut you off and when things are building up and stacking up, you have that experience of feeling what it feels like to have fear build up inside of you. This is the practice, this is the dojo, where you know what it feels like to have that stress response coming and you say, no, I'm good.
Yes, perfectly said. I'm good, I'm okay. Something very simple will make it go away. All right? So we're gonna go through this hold, and then I'm gonna say, okay guys, we're gonna hold this for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Big breath into the nose. And when you breathe in through the nose, and when it's like you're sucking life up a straw, and you breathe in powerfully through the nose, and I want you to picture, you're gonna squeeze your root lock. Remember your intrinsic muscles? You're gonna squeeze those intrinsic muscles. You're gonna feel the spine light up. Picture all of the energy flowing up the spine and out the crown. So it's gonna look like this. Breathing through the belly, squeezing the perineum, all your focus and attention at the crown of the head, and how big can you be? And I'll talk you through this. We're gonna hold this for about 15 seconds, and then we'll tone out. And then we'll go straight into the next round. But that's what every hold for the breath is gonna look like. It's gonna look like us counting down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Big breath in, exhale all the air out. And then you're gonna go into the exhale hold. Count that exhale hold down. Then we're gonna say 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Big inhale through the nose. Pulling the energy up the spine, squeezing the perineum, root lock, blasting the energy out the top of the head. And then we're gonna go into the next round. Each breath will be a little bit different. And there will be a time when I'll tell you to inhale and hold, so just follow me. You don't have to remember any of this. Your subconscious will remember all of it. I'll walk you through all of it. Josh will walk you through all of it, and you just roll with our voice.
So this is the advanced side of the practice. We're gonna preface that with some build-up. I'm gonna walk you through some foundational things, and we'll get the body prepped, the nervous system prepped, and then Travis, that'll be his piece that he'll take you through. For me, I'm going to start with teaching everyone just the foundational things. And before I get there, a couple disclaimers on health, right? So keep in mind you're in total control. And if at any moment you feel, we're gonna be changing state, we're gonna be activating systems in our body and moving energy. So if at any time you feel too uncomfortable, you can bail and get back to normalized breathing through the nose. And also, if you're pregnant this probably isn't for you once we get to Travis's portion. So other than that, if you have any other health conditions, self-monitor and remember that you're in control. Awesome.
Awesome. So the first breath that we will start with when it transitions from Josh to me is called DMT alkaline breathing. We're going to breathe through our nose and out of our mouth, and it's going to look like this. You're going to put your tongue against the roof of the mouth, and you're going to inhale in through the nose, and you'll tone out the mouth. And I want you to watch my belly while I do this. I'm breathing into my belly. You put your dominant hand on your belly. Mine is left. And I want you to breathe in through the nose and make sure you're filling your belly first.
Let your belly relax out. Just let the tension in your abdomen go.
If your non-dominant hand moves first, then you're not breathing into the belly. Now, a lot of people will tell you, Sheldon, take big, deep breaths. It's not true. We want to have empty space in the lungs called a neutral lung. So the perfect breath is 5 seconds in and 6 seconds out. So I want you guys to do that with me here for a second with your hands on your chest. Now, if you breathe fast, you're going to fill up. It's going to go like this. And you're going to be like, holy shit, I'm only on number 2. This is where breath has gone wrong. So we're going to breathe slow. And I want you to think about only filling half of your lungs. 5 seconds in, 6 seconds out. Let's do this for just a second. Close your eyes. Dominant hand on your belly. Non-dominant on the chest. Breathing into the dominant hand in 3, 2, 1. In, 2, 3, 4, 5. Out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In, 2, 3, 4, 5. Out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. In, 2, 3, 4, 5. Out, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's the perfect breath. If you breathe that way, you're going to live at 5.5 breaths a minute. The world's breathing at 18 breaths a minute right now. That's 300% too much.
Think about animals, like the animal kingdom, right? Turtles, elephants breathing just a few times per minute, and dogs, rats breathing multiple times per minute. Which one has a longer lifespan? Right? The turtles, the elephants live longer, they're breathing slower, they stay in that parasympathetic mode more often than a dog would.
The longest living organism on the planet is what? Everybody loves them. Turtles breathe once an hour. Once an hour. Once an hour.
An hour.
An hour, yeah.
Holy shit.
If they're moving, they breathe once every 45 minutes if they're moving and eating. But if they're in just rest and rebuild, they breathe once an hour. And they live 180 years, a sea turtle. Because oxidative stress is real. The more you breathe, you're killing your body. Like, I hate to have to associate oxygen with death, but that's a reason why stuff in outer space doesn't rust. It's because there's no oxygen. Oxidative stress kills. The overbreathing is killing you. It's aging you fast.
And there's a beauty to this. There's a hack to it, a biohack, if you will, to those exhale holds, that intermittent hypoxia. When you drop into that intermittent hypoxia with no air in the lungs and you hold, not only is your body absorbing all the oxygen you just put into it, but once you get to that threshold, your body's searching for energy. So it's picking up free radicals that are damaging cell walls and causing oxidative stress over time and clearing out your system a little bit each time you put yourself in that intermittent hypoxic space.
Yep. Your red blood cells are reproducing like crazy. Your stem cells are unwrapping. Telomeres are lengthening. pH levels are rising. That's another thing to talk about. We're going to start this here in a second. It's just good for you guys to know this stuff. As the hands and feet start to tingle, and as you start to feel lightheaded, push through it. This is just your body's response, and you need to get to the other side. So the tingling in your hands and your feet is called tetany. It's because we're offsetting the biology of the body by 60 to 70 basis points in the pH and alkalinity levels. Nothing, no dis-ease can live in an alkaline environment. So we're increasing alkalinity by 60 to 70 basis points during this time. So the tingling in the hands and feet, enjoy it, because after a while it goes away. I miss it.
Yeah.
So very cool. So then the next breath we're going to do is called Wim Hof. I'm sure you guys have heard of it. It's also called cosmic breathing. In through the mouth, out through the mouth. It's going to look like this. Watch my belly. And when I'm inhaling in, I'm just releasing. A big breath in, and I just release. You see me opening my mouth because I want this pie hole to get as big as I can so that I can get oxygen in easily, and then I just release, okay? So we're gonna do that, and then I'm gonna count that down, and we're gonna go into the same breath holds, and then the final piece of the puzzle will be soma. I'm gonna walk you through it. It's just in through the nose, out through the mouth, in for 2, out for 4. So it'll be in, 2, out, 2, 3, 4. In, 2, out, 2, 3, 4. And it's going to be through the nose. And you're going to be laying on the floor. So I want you guys to find your comfortable place. Do you have anything else?
Well, yeah, we're going to transition into the actual practice here. So if you need a minute, we've got tissue up here if you want to blow your nose. We also have arc drops. Some of you have experienced these. Pure mint hit that just opens your system up, opens your lungs and your respiratory system to, I love using it before breath work and performance. So if anyone would like some arc drops, then we can do that. All right. So
take it easy though on it.
Yeah, just
because it will open you up. All right, tongue out, head up. Tongue out, head up. Okay, guys.
Like art crystal?
Let's start grabbing grab the tables. Let's start moving them real quick.